What's up, y'all? Devon here again for obligatory showing up for you weekly every Friday with a music news, a new music recap. Today is August 23rd, 2024, and today's top story is Radiohead x Nosferatu. So cites of the 1922 film Nosferatu are being paired with Radiohead's 2000 and 2001 albums Kid A and Amnesiac. So this is happening for the first time in LA on the big screen, but this isn't really the first time this idea has been done. In fact, you can experience this from the comfort of your own home, and this is not the only rock band and silent film combo that this series has planned for you. So let's talk about it. Blue Starlight is a drive-in theater based in Austin, Texas that is expanding to produce this nationally based cinema event series. Silence Synced, scoring music from rock bands to famous silent films. And obviously with silent films, you bring yourself to a particular era of 1920s film. Some of the most historic and influential films that were ever made were made during this time. Nosferatu is an unofficial German film adaptation of the novel Dracula, and it is now regarded as one of the most influential films of all time, particularly in the horror genre. It is seen as a template or a blueprint now 100 years in the future. And in this feature, you're getting the art rock from Radiohead in these two albums. Kid A with the blends of more electronica, ambient, and IDM, and transmuting that into more experimental rock and jazz with Amnesiac. Now, Kid A and Amnesiac have always been kin to one another as they were released a year apart. They were recorded generally at the same time and were originally planned to be released as a double album together, which the band would actually eventually do in a repress recently in 2021. Now, that sounds pretty awesome. I mean, being in LA and actually getting to see this and experience it on the big screen sounds like a lot of fun. But I feel it's important to mention that this is not the first time that this idea has existed. This is Reg Hart. He is a film archivist and a Toronto native who screens films at the Cinephorium inside his home. And he's pretty well known for this exact idea, pairing Kid A and Amnesiac with Nosferatu. He calls it Kid Dracula. This is a series he's been doing for well over a decade at this point, probably longer than that. Now, I have no idea if he's a part of anything that Blue Starlight is doing. I'm assuming not, but I figured he was worth giving a mention to in this video. If you're not based in LA or Toronto, I mean, you could set this whole thing up yourself, like I said. You make a playlist with all 10 songs from Kid A and the first 9 songs from Amnesiac, and you can watch Nosferatu right here on YouTube, so definitely don't have to go far out of your way if this sounds like something that would be fun to experience, at least by yourself or with friends. Like I said, this isn't the only feature that Blue Starlight is going to do. They say next on the list of music-movie combos is going to be REM, providing the soundtrack for Buster Keaton's 1924 film Sherlock Jr. Other bands said to be in future features are Pearl Jam, Pixies, They Might Be Giants, and Amonto Bean. And now I turn it back over to y'all. What do you think about Nosferatu and Radiohead, particularly with these two albums? I'm not the biggest Radiohead fan, so I'm wondering if you would pick different music to soundtrack this kind of a movie, or what other movies you would want to pair with Radiohead. Also, with the other band names that were mentioned in here, what are some good films you think would fit with them, or just expand it to any music-movie combinations? What's something you would love to hear yourself and see on a screen like that? Let me know down in the comment section. I want to talk more about this, so hit me up. Next up, if you've ever wondered what it's like to be inside the American football house, well, now you can do that. You can even rent it and stay in it. Because this very famous house that was featured on the cover of their first album is now an Airbnb that the band and their label owns. Now, way back in 2023, I did one of the first episodes of this show, and we talked about the fact that the band and their label decided to purchase the house. And this is a pretty good idea, right? They get to make a certain amount of money off of this. I'm sure it's kind of a premium as it's a piece of history, and it just kind of amplifies the lore of American football and Midwest emo and everything interconnected with this band. House is located in Urbana, Illinois, which is a college town where all these gentlemen met and fostered their love for an up and rising Midwest emo trend that they would eventually pioneer with this legendary album. That's part of the reason why someone might want to, pay to stay here. Next up, it's kind of an aging story here, but the beloved English experimental rock band known as Black MIDI has confirmed that they are on an indefinite hiatus. This is news that was broken directly from the band's co-frontman Jordy Griep. The news was broken directly from the band's co-frontman Jordy Griep, who basically let the cat out of the bag during an IG live session, very unceremoniously, I might add, and it seemingly was against the wishes of other group members. Moving a little bit more into some hip-hop news here, A$AP Rocky postpones Don't Be Dumb, and wow, we were so goddamn close. I really thought the naysayers were going to be wrong this time, but they were not. A$AP Rocky's long-awaited new album is being delayed, he says, until the fall. So it was supposed to release on August 30 next week, and now we don't even have like a confirmed date for this. And Rocky is saying that the leaks and issues that were plaguing this album early on are persisting. He's still having these same problems, and that's why he's pushing the album back. I don't know if he's changing the content of the album yet again. Next up, I also wanted to mention that The Weeknd seems to be nearing in on his upcoming album. If you're like me and you've been a big fan of After Hours and Dawn FM, you've been looking forward to what is being sold to us as the final piece of a trilogy in the After Hours series. If you've seen some of what he's been teasing out there on Instagram, I think we can assume that this is going to take on like a prequel-esque theme for the story. He has been promoting an upcoming concert in Sao Paulo in which he says he's going to be playing only music from these 3 albums, which might mean he might play a new song or some new music from the new project. I've been keeping tabs on this album all year long, and it feels like we kind of get in there, getting close. I hope it's sooner rather than later. But let's go ahead and talk about some new music that came out this week. I would say it's a pretty prolific album week in terms of editors' picks from the obligatory side of things. A bunch of good stuff in the albums category here, but it's really this EPs, deluxe, and streaming section that I wanted to focus on because, as many of you know, Travis Scott's Days Before Rodeo has gotten a re-release and is officially on streaming now. This was really the mixtape that got Travis Scott popping early on when he was tied to good music, Kanye West, Big Sean, and everybody was still there. Pusha T, all that whole movement was still happening. It does feature a little bit of new music as well, so if you've already been listening to this thing this whole time, still is worth a listen. And then I had to mention the new Ka album, The Thief Next to Jesus. This one's a big one for abstract rap fans. If you're into the Rock Marcianos or Armand Hammers of the world, then I would guess that you would love the very lyrically dense and symbolic raps of Ka. And then some of the singles that we're getting this week are a good look into some of the future albums we're getting and some of the album announcements that we've gotten. So let's move on to that. Albums announced this week. I wouldn't say it was the craziest week of album announcements, but, kind of depending on what you're into, we got Jordy Griep here. Again, we mentioned from Black MIDI, The New Sound. That's his upcoming album. A new album from Joba of Brockhampton. Destroy Lonely, Tempest, Amyl and the Sniffers. That's all we got there. And then albums next week. Again, A$AP Rocky, Rip, Enum Claw, a band we really like here at Obligatory, and Doechii. Alligator Bites Never Heal. This is being billed as more of a mixtape, and it's like the 4th or 5th project that's been released out of TDE this year. So they've been on fire. Levels releasing in September. I think there's a lot to look forward to, particularly in the opening couple weeks. We got Toro y Moi, MJ Lenderman, Niloufer Yanya, Floating Points, Julie, and more. We got a new Blue in Exile album coming, their first since Miles, which came more than a decade after Below the Heavens, and albums the rest of the year as we are well into the back half of 2024. Still a lot to look forward to as we get into album of the year list making territory. And that's all this week for the news and the new music. I appreciate you getting to the end of this video. If you haven't already, clicking the like button really does help us out. We try to be here every single week, and for the most part, that's what we do. So I will be back next Friday with more news for y'all. Feel free to join me if you like what we do here. Definitely click the subscribe button if you want to keep tabs on us. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see y'all next week. All right, peace.